I've got the pleasure of having a great friend, Jonathan, who I just trained with over in Marbella. So Jonathan is, I'm not going to try and pronounce your surname, I'll get you to pronounce it in a minute, is the number one trainer in Sweden. Awesome all-round guy, got great physique and phenomenal trainer. What is your surname before I try and make a hash of trying to pronounce this?
It's actually Fogelberg.
Yes, that's why I didn't try and pronounce it. Before we begin, for anyone to find out more information about you, Jonathan, what's your social pages, some information about you?
Both Instagram and Facebook is Jonathan Fogelberg, my whole name. Simple as that. So you can find me there.
Easy peasy. So what we're going to go through today, I want to try and make this educational and helpful for people. So what we're going to do is we're going to go, Jonathan's going to go, I'm going to go, and we'll go through the 5 things you need to focus on for fat loss, because that's what the majority of most people trying to struggle with. So as if a client first came to us, what's the first thing we would look at trying to address? So then listening to this podcast, you can have some takeaway knowledge that will try and help you. And then if you have any other questions, feel free to follow up with me on Instagram or Facebook if anyone has any others, or messages Jonathan on Instagram and Facebook as well, and we could run through anything else. So if I pass it over to you, Jonathan, what would be the first thing that you would look at when a client comes to you and their primary goal is to lose body fat?
It's pretty simple. I think the first thing we look at is make sure they are in a calorie deficit, to make sure they don't eat more than they take, or that they burn more than they take in, actually, because we won't know, like, if you're not in a calorie deficit, you really can't lose weight. So that's probably the first key factor to really get nail on. And after that, maybe, you can look into like macros, but the first thing is just calorie in, calorie out. I would look into that.
What would you say is the big mistake people make with
that? Probably they underestimate how much they don't move as much as they think, and they eat more than they think. You can have like people come to me and say, I eat 2,500 calories. Then you tell them to write everything down for like a week. What they eat is mostly like 1,000 calories more or something like that. So they eat more than they think.
I think it's one of those things statistically, I think it's showing that people actually are eating 25 to 30% more calories when they think they are, even when they are tracking, because people just aren't very accurate at it. Which obviously that it's like a compounding effect. If you're eating 20% more every single day, I think that has a big effect. And one of the things which I think is interesting you mentioned as well is about movement, because something that I think is really common, which I get a lot of people to track using like an Oura ring, or people use Fitbits, is like their general activity levels. So for example, someone could be coming towards an end of a diet, and I know you work with a lot of the competitors, and for example, they're starting to get tired and maybe their fat loss has stalled. So you reduce their calories, say maybe 200 calories a day, for example. And because they're tired, they end up moving less. They do, for example, 4,000 or 5,000 less steps a day. And that basically just balances out their energy balance anyway. So the calories you've taken away has made no difference because they're actually burning less on a daily basis. Is that something you see quite a lot?
Yeah, it's very common. Like in the end of a prep, like if we talk for competitors, but even for normal people, we all know like getting into really low body fat is pretty hard. And the lower you get, like the more tired you also get. And I used to see people like they move less just to like chill out. And then when you, as you said, like when you reduce calories and they by themselves without telling you reduce their activity, it's still the same. Like the balance is still there. So it's a common mistake to start to move less when things get hard.
It is a good question. Like this is the $1 million question. What would you look at when someone's checking in, for example, and then they aren't making progress, but on paper they should be? Would that be really just nailing down if they are actually sticking to like tracking things as they should be?
If it's competitors, yes. I do think like if they hire me for a competition, they're gonna go up on stage and like show their body to other people. I do think the majority actually do measure the food and stuff like that. But I used to tell them to send a print of their average steps, because sometimes there's some lies in there. And they tell me they move more than they do. So I said, okay, let's take a print for the last week and send it to me. And then we can see from there. And most of the time, that's where the problem is.
Do you find it's worse for men or for women? Who's the biggest liar?
Men, 100%. Okay. Yeah, but actually girls, it's almost opposite. Like they tell me they do 60 minutes of cardio, they do 90. but like guys, they don't want to turn flat and they want to lose size, and it's like they do 45 instead of 60.
That's fascinating. I think that goes down to one of the biggest things when it comes to coaching, and why coaching is so valuable is because it's managing people's psychologies and their mindset. Because no matter how advanced someone is, they're not a robot. And I think that's where it's important to have someone like you or me in their corner to really nail people down, if that makes sense, in a good way.
Yeah, exactly, and keep them accountable for what they're doing.
Yeah, 100%. So I think that covers energy balance and calorie deficit pretty well, to be fair. I'm going to go, the number two thing I'm going to talk about would be training intensity. And I don't know why it's the first thing that comes into my head is your silly video on Instagram taking the piss out of influencers, like drinking Nocco cans whilst on the adductor machine and pissing around. Like, so if anyone hasn't seen, if you go over to Jonathan's Instagram, there's a highly amusing video of him mocking Instagram influencers, and there's a lot of them there in Marbella, where Jonathan's living at the moment. So I would say training intensity is probably the other big tool that people don't really like maximize. In particular, I think more general population clientele. I think obviously you work with a lot of competitors. I think that's less common. But the most frustrating thing I see is when people cut sets super short. So a really good way for anyone listening to this is like, if, for example, you're doing a tricep press down as an example, if your first rep is the same speed as your last rep, you probably had another 5 reps there. If you just stop because you did 10 or 12 or whatever you're supposed to do, which is what a lot of people do, like that is almost pointless. Like the way I look at it is with an exercise, all the sets are all the reps, are almost a warm up in the set up until you get to the point where you're starting to fail. And that's where you're really going to start to get reaping the benefits. Like the longer you can stay in that sort of hurt zone where it's shit and you suffer a bit, the more reward you're going to get out from it from the long side. Is that something you see is quite common?
Yeah, definitely. Like it's pretty easy, I think, when you're eating a surplus of calories and you're feeling strong, you have a lot of energy to keep the intensity high. But as we said, like before, with the calorie deficit, it's almost the same. Like you ease up a little bit when it's getting harder. And as you said, you need to be in that zone where it almost hurts to really get a lot out of it.
What would you suggest as a practical tip to help people get into that zone?
Track and log their training, and have a logbook, and make sure like you should not. What I usually see is like for presses, shoulders, and chest, first 2-3 weeks that they lose like a little percentage of strength, but then from there you should not lose that much. If you're losing that much, something's wrong with your diet or your training too soft.
I agree. I think when anyone's going into a fat loss phase, the first place that I always see myself and with other people is your pressing strength just seems to drop off a cliff a little bit at the beginning, and then it steadies out. But I think I always find with leg and back training, I don't really notice much of a difference, to be honest with you.
No, I'm the same. Like maybe some like the heaviest top setting squats or hack squats, but not that much. And like deadlifts, I never lose strength. That's pretty weird, even on that. But pressing for shoulders and chest, I lose some strength, and I see that pretty common.
The other thing I would say to people is putting their phone away, because this is one of my pet hates, is people being on their phones all the time in the gym. Like, obviously, I film a lot of stuff, and I tend to not use my phone for that, or I'll have another phone that I'll do that with, because I think that's the worst thing is that people end up getting distracted massively, getting lured into the phone, into Instagram, and like that's all cool if you want to film stuff, but then film it and post it later rather than like sitting there on Instagram like during your workout posting it. And I just see that, and I literally just want to like bang my head against the wall when I see people doing that. That's super frustrating. I think that's probably one of the worst things you could do. And also from a like nerdy scientific point of view, like actually staring into bright screens like down regulates your nervous system, so it's not going to help you in terms of like training intensity or focus of what you're there to really do.
I didn't know that actually, but
yeah, I think I learned that from Ben Bukowski. He loves a nerdy tip like that. So
yeah,
that's a simple hack for anyone. To be honest with you, I don't think you're going to notice any difference from it. Like if you look at a screen, you have to do a rep less on an exercise, but it's something to maybe be aware of. Do you know what I mean? And also, it's quite a good thing to threaten people with. Like you're going to be weaker if you look at your screen all the time. So put your phone down.
I'm going to start using that one.
There you go. I can imagine. Like Jonathan the Enforcer. You got to black out your screen during training sessions, or have it covered. There you go. So that's I think is a big one. I think the training intensity one, get my words out, as well, I would say is a skill. And I think training to like an intense level, people don't necessarily know the levels of intensity until they've maybe been pushed very hard by someone. Because if you train on your own all the time, it's very easy to train in your comfort zones. And if you've got someone else there to push you, or like a training partner, or even just training in a better environment of a better gym, then that makes a big difference. Interesting question for you, Jonathan. What would you say? Obviously, you trained at a few different gyms. What would you say is the best gym you've trained in?
I would actually say this the Skytech gym in Budapest is one of the top gyms. Have you been there?
No, but
Skytech Gold, I think.
I might be going there. It's in Budapest, Hungary, yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. Also, the what was his name? Boo Francis, Powerhouse Soyas at New York.
Yeah,
I've been there. I've been at the Gold Gym, Venice, but it's more like because it's a Gold Gym Venice.
Yeah, nostalgia.
But yeah, yes, probably. We have some good gyms in Sweden too. Here in Spain, I have not really trained at some super gym. Like here are okay gyms, but not super.
Yeah, there's nothing like. I find that the gyms in Spain are like UP is good, but I find there's a lot of them are a bit soulless. Like I find it a bit difficult to get myself like super amped up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I think it's because it's hot and it's sunny. I'm like, I just want to go sit by the pool or on the beach.
Yeah,
it's that Spanish mañana lifestyle.
Exactly. Well, what's the best gym you've been to?
I knew you were going to ask that now. I don't think there's really one that really stands out. I like different ones with different things. I think I like UP in Marbella. I think it's quite cool. I like Banouche Gym in Dubai. It's got quite a cool atmosphere, to be fair.
Yeah, that's true.
And then I like Max and Eagle probably for equipment in Dubai. It's probably my favorite gym to actually train in because it's super empty. It's really clean. So it'd be probably a combination of those. I've been to some pretty cool gyms in the US, like Powerhouse in Columbus, or actually to be fair, in terms of equipment, MI40 in Tampa, like Ben Picolsi's gym, is probably the best gym you're ever going to go to. But again, like when I trained in there, it was like me, my mate Ryan Crowley, and like maybe 3 other people in there. So again, it's a little bit soulless at times because it's quite quiet. I think it's that happy medium at gyms. You almost need to have some people in there, but like not too many sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You need to feel like the energy from others, like training hard. Then it's easier to like just step up by yourself.
100%. So I think a big point that from talking about training is like you're a product of your environment, and where you are makes a big difference. So that's what I would say. What's your, if we're going off topic a little bit, what's your protocol with clients in terms of if they aren't doing comp prep with like refeed meals and cheat meals and things like that? Are you pretty stringent with them with that respect?
I give them like 2 to 3 meals a week. I call them like social meals. You can have like a lunch with your care workers, or like you can have a dinner with your spouse or family, friends, whatever. So I think like if you're not in a contest prep, there should be space for like 3 meals without the plan is getting like, without it's not working. So usually 2 to 3 meals, depending on like, usually like it takes 4 to 6 weeks to start to learn a client and how they eat and what their cheat meals or free meals is based off. So someone can get away with like eating like maybe 3-4 because they're not going overboard with and some people just go nuts, this pizza, Ben and Jerry's and everything like for 3 hours to put down 5,000 calories or something. So for those people, maybe we limit it to 2, but between 2 and 4. Some people can have 4, but then it's clean refeeds. Like,
I think one of the important things for people to learn though is that, like, say the whole Domino's and Ben and Jerry's pizza thing that got very popular, I think, for a while, probably because of social media. I don't know if that was the same in Sweden, but that was like really popular for a while.
Yeah, it was.
I think it's how crap you feel the next day is really what you want to make people aware of, because like it was almost like a food hangover, and that's not really what you want to do. And there's no way that anyone can tell me like that's going to aid in terms of training performance or anything. I was listening to watching one of Larry Wheels' videos the other day, and he was with Juan Morel, and he was saying that he used to do 40,000 calories in a day, like cheat days. I was like,
yeah, I've seen some videos from his cheat days. He's like, it's disgusting.
He actually did it. Like, legit, I believe it. It's not bullshit. But like, there's no way you can tell me that that's beneficial. Like,
No, no.
Just like the inflammation in your body from that, and just shows how genetically gifted some people are. They can get away with that.
Yeah. But I don't know if you had that in UK a couple of years ago, but we had it in Sweden. Like when Rich Piana went big on social media, and he had this like he was taking a protein shake and a Ben and Jerry's every night, and we have like bodybuilders here like gaining up, but just getting slubby fat. But then we're eating Ben and Jerry's and have a whey shake every night before bed just because Rich Piana had it, and he was like, "Eat big, get big."
This is like, I know we're on the same wavelength because we always like slag off influential people. Not that Rich Piana was necessarily an influencer, but I suppose he was. Is the fact that like people do so much dumb stuff because they see other people do it, and it's like if you just learn to critically think for yourself. Why would be eating a tub of like ice cream before going to bed be a good idea? Like,
exactly.
It's not going to help for building muscle or for burning body fat, other than probably making you diabetic and making you like fatter. So, yeah, that's a terrible idea. I don't know if Sweden's as badly manipulated by the social media as the UK. Probably, I guess.
Yeah, I think probably they are.
It is horrendous. Like the other thing is, I don't know, obviously you'll be the same on this, is people doing like super dumb exercises that don't actually do anything is really, really common. Like the plate chest press raises, and like the women's ones are pretty bad as well. There's a lot of silly like exercises with bands and things.
Yeah. I actually have a clip just going up on Instagram tonight with just 3 like normal influencer exercises not to do if you want to build glutes. But often it's like for guys, it's like chest, like it's stupid exercises like sitting on the side and doing this plate press.
I filmed all of these exercises because they're literally like the dumbest thing ever. Like, why would you sit on a chest press machine sideways and then do it with one hand? Like, if that was better, they would probably have designed the machine that way. Like, do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
I feel like for guys, actually in Sweden, it's like it's the chest movement that is tried to like reinvent, and for girls, it's the glutes.
Yeah, that's yeah. Be warned. I look forward to seeing this video. If we go on to the next question, so you've done calorie deficit first as the first thing to look at, and energy balance. I've done training intensity. What are you going to go for number 3?
I actually have some notes here before. And one thing I often say to my clients for the first 2 weeks that they like often like react to is like eat like a dog the first 2 weeks. By that I mean like eat the same food, the same time, the same amount for 2 weeks. Then we can see like where you actually are with your calories and stuff like that. And from there you can add in like different type of foods and how you want to eat. But I say for the first 2 weeks to get a good start and to really see where you're at, eat like a dog. And when I tell people like that, it's like, what do you mean eat like a dog?
I was going to make a joke then. If you actually, this is a question. If you actually told people to put in a dog's bowl, would they eat it?
Probably not. So some competitors might be.
I had someone once ask me. Someone asked on one of our Facebook groups I think it was for our Shred and 8 program, saying, "Is it dangerous to be eating raw eggs because I've been eating all the eggs raw and Brazil they have salmonella in them?" And I was like, "Why are you eating them raw? Like, why don't you just cook the egg?" Like, it's like sometimes. Please use some common sense, people. Like if you have on your meal plan, like salmon, it means it's cooked. Like you don't eat the salmon raw, like, or chicken breast. Like although if you got food poisoning from chicken breast, would be a quick way to lose weight. Not I'd recommend it.
That's true, effective, but maybe not.
The eat like a dog is a good analogy. But I think what's important about that, and what that really re-emphasizes is the number one thing is consistency, particularly from like a coach's point of view. And I had this conversation with a client earlier on, and it's like, unless you're being consistent with things, we can't make changes because we don't really know what's going on. You're just guessing. And it's the same with like, you can't change everything at the same time because then you don't really know what's working. And I think that's one of the things that people sometimes find difficult is they expect things to be changed every 3 days, every week or whatever. And it's like, realistically, your body likes routine and like structure, and you probably need to give it a week or 2 before changing anything.
Yeah, true. I don't know if you see it this way also, but also often when I work with girls, they tend to do like maybe have them do 2-3 weeks with the same amount before you can actually see some changes. Before I feel like girls' bodies are like reacting slower than men. I don't know if you agree.
I agree with that. I think the reason I would probably hazard a guess at that, no scientific reason why, would just be it's almost like a lag effect, if that makes sense. Almost like nothing happens, and then bang. I think it's partly because they're smaller than men. Probably, let's say, if I guess my wife 50% of the weight of me, so like you could hypothetically say then that we've got twice as much tissue that can then be manipulated. So maybe we can respond fast to things because we've got more muscle, more fat, and there's more variables that will look like it's moving more drastically. And obviously, I think with women's hormonal cycles, that obviously has an effect as well. So I think that probably could also have a delay in it. But I would say I would agree that's something I think I see. I think that the initial stages with women tends to be slower, but I think probably from like week 4 to 6, it almost suddenly accelerates quite quickly.
Yeah, 100% agree.
I think that's probably the golden window for a lot of people. I don't know if you find the same, but I think a lot of people get a bit frustrated, maybe, particularly if they've got a lot of body fat to lose, that the first 2-3 weeks, if you're plus 15% body fat, like you going from 17% body fat to 15% body fat, you're not really going to look that different. But if you go 15 to 13 or 13 to 11, like that's like a night and day difference. It'll be a massive jump in terms of how you look visually.
Yeah. And you can also see like people that have a lot to lose, like they can lose fat pretty quick, but the skin is like not tightening up in the same speed. So there's like a window also almost for competitors when we push them really hard. That's like the fat is burned, but the skin is still there. So like the skin needs like 2-3 more weeks before you can actually see the results from the fat loss.
Yeah, I think it's almost like that lag effect I was talking about a minute ago.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good point. The next one I'm going to go on to. So you've done obviously eating like a dog, which is an interesting one. So that's consistency. Number 4 I'm going to go for is sleep. So I think this is probably one of the big things that we really look at in terms of clients, and that's essentially where we spend a third of our life doing is sleep. And I think a lot of people really overlook this, in particular in terms of having really broken sleep, having caffeine too late at night. And when we sleep, like thousands of metabolic processes are happening, and it's really important we try and optimize this for recovery, and also reducing cortisol and stress levels in the body. An interesting example of like when I think you can see how influential sleep and stress together, I guess, are in terms of fat loss. Is like when you see clients go on holiday, they sleep more and they're more relaxed, and they actually come back and they're leaner because they're not stressed so much. They're actually sleeping more. And obviously, when we sleep, our natural growth hormone production increases, testosterone production in men is very, very important. So I think optimizing sleep is a huge one. Do you have anything you use with your clients specifically to try and focus on that?
I totally agree. First of all, that is probably one of the most underestimated things with the fat loss phase, actually sleep. But usually, I tend to tell them like no screen time, like the hour before, like try to have it dark, like sleep cold, no like information going in from like TV or scrolling down Instagram or something. To really relax the last hour before they go to sleep. Then they tend to like hit the deep sleep early on, and recover better. Because I have a lot of clients that when they get closer and closer to a show, like the sleep gets worse and worse and worse. And there you can see a huge difference if they really like relax the hour before, even if they can't sleep, they just like turn the lights off and no screen or stuff like that. That helps.
100%. I think one golden gem that I would add in particular for bigger guys, and something that's helped me a lot, is using nasal strips when you sleep. Because a lot of people, when they lie on their back or their side, if you're a bigger guy, they struggle to breathe through their nasal cavity. So they end up mouth breathing, which has a very negative effect in terms of you actually getting restorative sleep, and also has a very negative effect in terms of your blood pressure. So a lot bigger guys tend to have higher blood pressure, which again is going to, like, if you think about how the body works, our cardiovascular system underpins everything, so including muscular system. So if that's compromised, that's obviously going to compromise your ability to burn body fat or build muscle mass. So you being able to get your blood pressure down a little bit will help. And this is a really easy way to do that. And the reason for that is that think it's like 75% of your nitric oxide production comes via your nasal cavity when you breathe through your nose. So if you're not breathing through your nose, you're missing out a lot of this, which is going to have a big impact in terms of vasodilation and getting your blood vessels to relax and then reduce your blood pressure more. So I think a lot of the bigger guys, their bodies are in like a super stressed state because they're never actually nasal breathing. They're always breathing through their mouth, also when they're asleep. So anyone listening to this, if you wake up in the morning and you always wake up with a dry mouth, that's probably why. So I would try, I think Breathe Easy are the ones I use on nasal strips, but makes a big difference. That's a secret hack.
I tried that myself.
Yeah, it's really good. Honestly, that's a game changer. That one. And the other thing, I'm a bit of a weirdo. I think it's like I was supposed to live in like a bat cave or something, but I can't sleep with any light like at all. I have to have like complete darkness. So in Sweden, you only have like 6 hours of light in the winter, right?
Yeah, something like that.
So it's that's probably quite easy at the time, but even like the standby lights on computer on like TVs and stuff in bedrooms, I have to block off. So what I do is I use what's called like a Manta sleep mask. It's like a eye goggle thing that makes a massive difference in terms of sleeping.
Okay,
that helps.
But do you take any supplements, stuff like that for sleep? You believe in those, like GABA, melatonin?
So I do. I've used a couple of different ones. So this is actually interesting, to be fair. So there's two different ones I use, both from Supplement Needs, and they're both designed by Dr. Dean, who's a genius. And the first one's called a PM priming stack, which is basically designed to reduce cortisol and help your body relax and get into a more relaxed mood. Now, since I came back from Marbella seeing you, I've taken that and I have had like the trippiest dreams ever, like the weirdest shit, like proper like freaky stuff. So I think that's like my REM sleep for me, like going through the roof. I think my Aura Ring's loving life, saying how recovered I am. So that's one thing I use as a PM priming stack from Supplement Needs. And then the other one, which I haven't used for a while, is the sleep stack from them, which basically has all of those sort of things like 5-HTP, melatonin, magnesium, like zinc, all these other things to help sleep. So I think they do help. I don't think they're a necessity, and I tend to use them in phases, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I think sometimes if you use something all the time, your body just gets used to it, and then it doesn't have quite the same effect, which is why I think when I was in Spain, I wasn't taking this PM priming stack stuff. And then when I came back, then I think my body was just tripping out almost at night, which was quite cool in a weird way.
Yeah, but I agree.
So that would be my one covered on sleep. And then the last one, over to you.
Last one is actually a common mistake, one of the most common mistakes maybe. In the beginning of a prep, people start, or even with diets, like, everyone's going to lose like their 10 pounds, 20 pounds. They're going to make it quick. They start with too much cardio. I usually tend to say to people, like, start without cardio or as little as possible you can get away with, but still doing results. Like, because you need to understand that if you start with like 2 hours of cardio a day, sometimes you're going to get used to that, and then you need to go up to 3 hours, and then so start the diet or your conscious prep, whatever your fat loss phase, with as little cardio as possible as you can get away with.
That is probably the golden rule, and that's one of the things that I find a lot of people are excited, which is awesome. So when people want to start, they're like, yeah, I want to get shredded, I want to lose all this weight, I want to like look insane. So they were like, oh, why am I not doing cardio yet? Why am I eating so much food? Like, it's like, whoa, slow down, like Padawan.
Yeah.
Time will come. Just like wait. Like you won't be saying this in 2-3 months time. Particularly for people who are doing contest prep. Like once you've done it once, you know that you don't want to be starting doing loads out the gate, because it's you can incrementally add these things in, but once they're in, you can't really take them out. And the way I look at it is like you're using all the weapons you have available to you at one go, whereas you want to incrementally add things in rather than like throw the kitchen sink at it. And then, okay, you might drop weight quicker for 3 weeks, but then when you hit a wall, what you're going to do when you're already doing 2 hours cardio a day, you can do 3 hours. Like,
exactly.
it just gets to the point of where you can't take people's calories down lower, and you can't keep increasing cardio. It just doesn't work.
No, exactly. So it's like you said, they're so excited and they want to like go all in from the beginning, but no, it's not the answer to good results.
Yeah, I think patience isn't something people necessarily have so much now, not in a condescending point of view, but like the world we live in is like instant gratification. It's social media, all that other stuff, and people want like results yesterday. And yes, you can get results quickly, but what people end up doing is they try and run before they can walk, and they shoot themselves in the foot because they can only really go like 50% of the way, and they end up making life harder for themselves than it actually needs to be. I think
You
that
see any difference here between guys and girls? Like,
yeah, I think women are paranoid about eating too much. I think would be the big thing. I think they often, whenever they come to us, oh, we can't eat that. I can't eat that much food. It's like, just do it, and then they end up losing weight. You're like, told you so.
it's always good to say that.
Yeah. It's like if you look through this conversation, do you see this 2 weeks ago? We were like, oh, it's just too much food. I was like, I might have done this before. And I think that's probably the common thing I'd say with women. And I think men is the other way around, where they want to try and they think they can eat more than they can sometimes. And they also don't, in a fat loss phase, I think some of them want to do cardio, but I think some of them, like, I'm a big fan of cardio all year round, just because I think it's important for health and overall composition, where some people don't want to do it. I try and reinforce the fact, like, your heart is a muscle, and also you being like aerobically conditioned will allow you to train harder and therefore build more muscle. I don't know if that's something you come across a bit.
Yeah, I do. I also tend to like push people to do cardio like year round, and not maybe cardio for burning fat, but because of, you said, like, it's your muscle and you're gonna perform better. Like if you can go harder in the gym, your results will get better.
100%. That's why I'm a big fan of even like HIIT cardio on rest days. I think it works superbly well, and I also think that there's no doubt, in terms of my opinion, that I think some cardio will aid in terms of recovery. So, like, it doesn't have to be intense. Even if you're just walking outside, you could go for a stroll down the beach in Marbella or whatever, and then you can get a tan at the same time, because of like blood flow. And it's, for me, it's just like logic. And it's the same thing where I'm a big fan of things like sports massage, acupuncture. Like a lot of the research says it doesn't make any difference, but then if you think about it with logic, it's like, okay, how do muscles repair themselves? They have to have blood flow. The more blood flow we have going around, then they can probably repair themselves quicker and remove toxins.
Yeah.
So that's the way I try and like think about things.
Yeah. I'm of the same like opinion. Like even if some things tell that maybe it's not this way, but with logic it is. Like as you said, like with the blood flow, like what you do when you like hurt the muscle or like tear or something, you try to get blood in there every day. Just no like heavy movements, but get blood in there to heal.
Yeah.
So it makes sense for me.
Yeah, it's just use your brain. I think that's one of the things that people like. Studies are great, but then I think people need to sometimes learn to interpret studies and information can be like spun however anyone wants. And like now with the COVID era, I think that's the greatest time you're ever going to see examples of that. So I think that's something people need to be aware of. And I think a great example of that is like a lot of research says that like fasted cardio doesn't make any difference in terms of people losing fat faster, or like being more effective. What's your opinion with that?
Maybe like I'm of the opinion that fasted cardio is good. I like it. I try to have my clients do it. But then you have some of clients where there's no like science that proves that it's better doing it fasted. I'm like, no, maybe like 60 minutes walk in the same like speed like now in the afternoon or in the morning. Maybe that's not a big difference, but still makes sense to make it in the beginning. I would never like take a meal and then go out for cardio. Like that doesn't make sense to like have a meal and then go for cardio. Have a meal and go for the gym and really train. Yeah, it makes sense. But in the morning, have a meal and go out for cardio. No, makes 100%. No sense for me.
And the thing is, like, it comes back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of, you think about, we aren't robots, we're human beings. So if you think about it from a couple of different ways. Firstly, the fact that if you do your cardio first thing in the morning, it's already done, and you can't come up with any bullshit excuses that you're not going to do it. Also, the fact that you're going to have it further away from your workout. So I personally am definitely not a fan of doing cardio post-workout, because if, for example, you've got trained legs and then you know you've got to do 30, 45 minutes of cardio afterwards, I can guarantee you're going to be saving a bit in the tank, because you know you have to do that afterwards. Because then it's going to end up being like a 3-hour workout probably, which again is going to be super catabolic, and you lose tons of muscle. So even if if hypothetically the studies said it was the same, then given that scenario and the scenario for 99% of people, then fasted cardio would be optimal. And I also think there's a big benefit for people like cognitively just getting it done at the start of the day and like setting themselves up. I think has a huge amount of benefits, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm 100% agree. And also, like you said, like having cardio not too close to the gym. It's also like that. How I work with like calories. If I'm reducing calories, I try to take them as long away from the training as possible. I try to not touch the pre and post workout meal. Like so, it makes sense to also have cardio like away from training.
Yeah, I'm quite good friends with Milo Sarcha. I've done a couple of podcasts with him on here, and one of the things he talks about a lot is almost like having. I'm probably going to hash this trying to explain it, but he basically tries to talk about having like a fat burning zone in the day, a maintenance zone during the day, and like an anabolic zone during the day. So like timing nutrients like carbohydrates around the workout would be like the anabolic time. The maintenance time would just be like protein, fats, and maybe a minimal amount of carbs. And obviously in the morning doing fasted cardio would be like the fat burning zone. And then depending on your diet, only having maybe protein or fats afterwards, or if you've got a higher carb diet, you could have carbs there as well. But I think that's, again, when you start to think about logically of how the body works, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and Milos, I think is a guy that like think logic, because many people try to call him out like this is bullshit what you do and everything like he stands for, but it makes sense when they talk about it.
Yeah, what I like about Milos is he just tries stuff and like it either works or it doesn't work. Like some things of his I've tried, like doing creatine. He's like a big fan of like pushing creatine super high. So like he told me he was doing like 40, 50 grams a day. So I was like, and I recommend people with like 5 to 10 grams max. So I was like, oh, all right, I'll try 20 grams for like 6 weeks. Nothing really happened, but yeah, it's just an interesting observation. It showed up in my blood work that my CK levels were like through the roof. So I took it back down after that. So yeah, it was real creatine. It obviously worked, but I wouldn't recommend anyone do that. But I think it's taken into context of what you're trying to do, but also thinking about logic. So for example, if he's working with some of the biggest human beings in the world who might be 250 pounds plus, they're going to have an extra, say, for example, 10 kilos of muscle mass on me. Can they get away with an extra 10, 15 grams of creatine and probably need it? Probably yes, because they've got extra muscle tissue. And that's where I think it comes down to like using logic rather than just like prescribed, like this study says everyone just needs 5 grams of creatine a day.
Yeah, 100%.
Which I think is a huge amount of truth with. Before we finish up, what's your opinion on fat burners and fat burning supplements in the market?
It was like this, like the things that actually work are not available in the market. Actually, not in Sweden. I don't know the laws in UK. I know you have some different laws there, but in Sweden, like it's caffeine almost in everyone, and there's some pepper extract to get you heated up. And the only benefit with
Caspium or something, isn't it called?
yeah, exactly. So it's like it's pepper extract and caffeine
and a bit of green tea.
Yeah, green tea extract also. So for sure, maybe the caffeine make you train a little bit harder, a little bit longer, and by that you can maybe burn a little more calories, but the supplement itself will not burn any calories for you.
100%. I entirely agree with that. And that's one of the BS things that gets spread by the supplement industry is like fat burners and stuff like that. It's just a load of shit. So if you're listening to this, don't buy into that. The big thing you need is literally just consistency and the 5 things we've spoken on here. So I'm going to try and remember these. Number 1 is calorie deficit. Number 2 was training intensity. Number 3, you said, was eat like a dog, which is an interesting way to put it. Basically being consistent. I think number 4 I said was sleep. And then number 5, what did you say for number 5?
Do as little cardio as possible in the beginning of prep.
Yeah, so I'd say like incrementally add things in and don't try and run before you can walk. So we'll wrap things up there, Jonathan. That was super helpful and insightful. So really, really appreciate your time. The YouTube video of me training will be dropping in the next few days. So when this podcast has gone live, it will be out there. So make sure you go and check it out, guys. Make sure you head over to Jonathan's IG and check him out. And if you've got any questions, feel free to fire either of us a message, anything fat loss and muscle building related. And make sure you share this to your stories. And also for one person who shares the stories, I'll be giving a free place on the Shred and 8 program. So if you post this, tag it, tag me and Jonathan, and then we'll be announcing the winner in a week's time. So we'll catch up with you in the next episode of the Shredder Show.